Hi, I'm the dietitian on the Prehab team. This video is aimed at those that are struggling to eat or who are struggling to actually maintain their weight. Unfortunately, a loss of appetite is a common side effect of cancer and some of the cancer treatments. Other factors can also affect your appetite and your ability to eat, such as if you're suffering from a lot of pain, if you're feeling sick or nauseous, if you've got a change to your bowel habit, such as constipation, if you've got problems actually swallowing your food, or if you've got a sore mouth. That can all mean that you're eating less than you generally do. This can result in you losing weight and also losing muscle. And what we want to do through your treatment is to aim to minimise any weight loss, and that's to put you in the best possible position to be strong for your treatment. This may mean in the short term that you're actually moving away from those healthy eating guidelines of having a diet that's high in fibre, low in fat and low in sugar. If you've got any concerns, it may well be worthwhile speaking to your medical team if you've got common side effects that I've mentioned before, or any other side effects, because there are some medications that can actually help. The top tips really, if you are struggling to eat or maintain your weight, is to try and eat little and often. So don't overface yourself with a big plate of food, but have lots of sort of smaller meals through the day. So you might want to switch from having breakfast, lunch and dinner to having sort of 5 or 6 small meals through the day, or having your regular meals but smaller portions with snacks between. Aim to try and have something regularly every couple of hours through the day, because again, if you're going long sort of times between eating, then sometimes that can make symptoms such as nausea worse if you're having sort of a long period between your meals. Try not to drink too close to meal times. If you're having a lot of fluids just before a meal time, you can actually leave yourself feeling quite full before you actually start eating. And quite often people say that the actual smell of food cooking can leave them feeling quite full before they've actually sort of sat down to eat. So using the microwave a little bit more, where you don't quite get the same smell from food cooking, can help. Or if you've got an extractor fan in your kitchen, then make sure you're using that. Or asking other people to help prepare your foods. Try and relax at meal times as well. Try and take the pressure off yourself. Maybe having the radio on in the background, having a magazine to hand, just so that you've got less focus on the meal itself, and just take the pressure off and just try and think of something else. And you might find you can just eat that little bit more because you're not concentrating quite so much solely on the food. As I mentioned before, it might well be that you move away from those healthy eating guidelines and have foods that are higher in calories and also, really importantly, protein. So your main sources of your calories, if you think of the Eat Well guide picture, are things that contain sort of carbohydrates, so foods like your bread, rice, potatoes, pasta. Also sort of foods that are generally quite high in sugar and fat, so sometimes some of your treats like sort of biscuits, cakes, things like that are good sources of energy. Protein is another really important food, and that will give us energy as well as helping our body to maintain its muscle mass and also sort of help with any healing. So your protein foods are things like your beans and pulses, so things like sort of baked beans, lentils, chickpeas. Also your sort of meats, so things like chicken, lamb, fish, are all really good sources of protein, as are your dairy foods, so things like your milk, cheese, yogurts, custards, things like that are all really good sources of protein, so they're really good to include in your diet. One of the things that's really important to do is to try and avoid any of those foods that are labelled diet or low fat, because you actually need to make sure you're getting the calories in if you're not eating as much or you're struggling to maintain your weight. So going more for the whole milk, so the blue top rather than the skimmed or the semi-skimmed. Trying to avoid things like diet or low fat yogurts and going for the thick and creamy or full fat versions. You can also add extra calories to the foods that you're eating. So if you are eating smaller portions, you're bumping up the calories in that food to make sure you're maximising the calories you're eating. So easy ways to do this are to use things like grated cheese. So you could add grated cheese into mashed potato or on top of a cottage pie. Or you can have something like your vegetables with some cauliflower cheese sauce, so a white sauce with some cheese in it on top. And that way, again, you're increasing your calories a little bit more. You can also use cream to fortify your foods. So you could stir a tablespoon or two of cream into a bowl of soup. You could also use butter, so if you're having vegetables, you could melt a little bit of butter on top of your vegetables or potatoes, and again that would increase the calories a little bit more. Jam is another good one to use. If you're having something like some rice pudding, you can add a blob of jam into that, or if you're having a bowl of porridge for breakfast in the morning, you could add a bit of jam to your bowl of porridge in the morning to up the calories that way a little bit. With eating your regular meals and snacks and things, it doesn't mean that you have to eat a hot meal in between your main meals through the day, but you could have something like a milky pudding that you might not be able to manage after your meal. So you can move away from the traditional sort of what you should have at each meal time, so you don't necessarily have to have cereal for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, things like that, but you could have something like some custard, a little pot of custard mid-morning, or some rice pudding mid-morning. So just have what you fancy sort of when you want it. In order to do this, it's really helpful that you have lots of snacks and things to hand or in the cupboard that you can grab when you do feel hungry and able to eat it. If you're out and about at appointments and things, you could take a few snacks and things with you so that you can snack on those while you're waiting to be seen, so that you're maximising on any times that you do feel like you can eat. Opting for high calorie fluids is another really important one. So maybe having something like a milky coffee or a hot chocolate. You can get lots of calories in that way without sort of necessarily thinking about what you're having, and sometimes fluids are easier to manage. If you're not a big fan of milk, then you could also have things like fruit smoothies. They're a really good source of calories because of all the natural sugars in your fruit and vegetables that are used to make them. One of the videos that I'm also going to make is one on how you actually fortify your milk. So this is when you actually add milk powder to your milk to up the calories, and you can use that then in things like your teas and coffees, or on your breakfast cereal in the morning, just as you would normal milk. But by fortifying it with skimmed milk powder, you're just increasing the protein and the calorie content of that milk, so you're getting more calories in without actually having to eat any more. You can also use skim milk powder to actually fortify your foods. So again, you could mix a little bit into some soup, or something like some rice pudding, and again you're increasing the calories that way. The main thing is to try and get some enjoyment back into your meals. So don't overface yourself with too much at once, and the main key is to eat little and often. Thank you.